So today we're going to finish up chapter 2, and we're going to now take a look at starting to make our programs more user friendly. And what I mean by that is, and some of you already know, when we've been programming up to this point, everything we have done as far as input and output have been done in that console window. That's the little box down at the bottom. We've been using system.out.printlns to display things down there. And we've been using keyboard, with our scanner class, whatever that means, to do our input. And your assignment 2.1, is a way for me to find out if you really know what's going on there. And about half of you have it done. And I think the due date for that is tomorrow. Okay, good. Well,
Due date for what?
What?
What due date?
For assignment 2.1. I believe,
Okay.
is that today or tomorrow?
I
Jason?
think it's
Tomorrow.
tomorrow.
It is tomorrow, right.
Tomorrow.
Okay, so now we want to start making our programs more user friendly. Okay, and we're going to get into having a way so that if I wanted to run your program and know nothing about programming, I don't need to see all the Java stuff and the console window and where to look. I need something nice that pops up. So what are we going to do? We're going to take a look at these things called dialog boxes. Okay, it's a start of an introduction of graphical user interfaces, right? Also known as GUIs. When you take CPS 230, that's going to use the same Java book you're in now and cover the rest of the book. And where we're at in 230 class right now is students are looking at bigger, better ways of using GUIs. But we're using a basic one. And when you do your assignments, everything should be done in GUIs now. I no longer need to see the console window. You can still use them for code listings. You can use them while you're writing your code. But when your program is run by me to be graded, I'd like to see everything done in message boxes, which are for the output, and input dialog boxes, which are for the input, clearly, because it says input as part of the name. All right, so when you got ready to take a look at some of the code listings that dealt with this, which was in section 214, you noticed a couple of lines that became important. All right, the first line is this guy right here. At the beginning of your program, you're going to see import javax.swing.joptionPane. That says, okay, there's stuff tucked away in a little area called joptionPane that I'd like to use. So I have to import it. There's so much stuff in Java, everything can't be imported automatically. We need to import things manually. All right, so for joptionPane, first thing I want to take a look at is a way to input. And to input, it says, create a GUI for me that gets me ready for input. And display this message. What's your name? Now, when you type in the little text field that's in the GUI and hit enter, it's going to bring it back and store it right here in name. So for input, we need the equals. So I know where to store it. Now, some of you are going to do it and forget to put the name equals, and it's still going to compile and run, and you're going to be going, oh my gosh, I don't know what's wrong. It needs to be able to store it. When I do a show input dialog box and it springs a value back and stores it, it's going to be a string data type. So the return type for the show input dialog is a string. So this is going to store in a string. After a while, we're going to look and see, well, if they're all stored in strings, how do I convert them? And we'll talk about that in a minute. Going along with that input, I have an output box. Okay, this is my joptionPane.show message dialog. I always follow it with null, and then that big conglomeration of stuff that I'd like to display in that message box. Now, I'm here to train you early because you'll see the benefits down the road. Another way to do it, instead of making this hello, for example, name, what if I had a lot of stuff I'd like to display? Well, I don't want this area to be big and messy. So what I'm going to do is take a string variable called outstring and store whatever it is I want to output. Because what if I wanted to put a second line? I could add a second line to outstring and a third, and I could keep adding to it so that when I display in my message dialog box, I only have to display just outstring. So when you output in your programs, I'd like to only see one show message dialog box. Some people will have 10. And as a user, you don't want to sit there and hit enter, read it, enter, read it, enter. You'd like to see it all in one big message box. And let's take another look at input. So I'm going to input JOption pane dot show input dot enter a number. Well, remember, the input dialog boxes, when they input, they will be stored in a string. And a common one I like is I just call it input string so that I can reuse it. Again, this is a string, but once I bring it in as a string and I know I want it to be a number, I can take an int variable called num and go num equals integer dot parse int input string. So this brought it in as a string like it always does. And in order to make it a number, I do this integer dot parse int of that string. So if you're reading in a name, good, read it in and you're ready to work with it. But if you're reading in an int, if you're reading in a double, we would need to do double dot parse double up here to do the conversion, convert a string. In this case, it was to an int. If I want to convert a string to a double, I'd put double dot parse double. Here's a question. What about a character? Please enter a letter. And I read it in and it's a string, right? How would I convert that to a character? Remember char at 0? That would go to that string, get the very first thing, which is the character we want, and convert it to a character. So don't forget about that method char at. So we're now, we're pretty good. We have our strings, we have our integers and doubles and characters. We're going to be able to input those with the ever popular JOption pane going on. Okay, so what I want you to do for the next 10 minutes is, and I'm going to stop the recording because that's all our recording is for today. But I want you to go back to the quadratic program you have, and I want you to update it so that instead of using the console, you use GUIs. Got it?